Good Sunday morning. This is Paul Welborn, and this is At Home Sunday School for Faith Baptist Church. It is Sunday, May 17th, so it's been 2 months since St. Patrick's Day, so I decided to wear green for that. So celebrate 2 months since St. Patrick's Day. Special day. So welcome, and thanks for tuning in. We're going to be looking at Galatians chapter 5, and I used the back of an envelope. Creative, Galatians chapter 5, and then I remembered I needed to add 6 on that too, so you can see I pinned in 6. So Galatians chapter 5 and 6 we'll be studying, and we'll be looking at serving, not something you do in the ocean when a big wave comes, but something you do whenever you're out helping folks and just being there for people. And serving comes in many different forms, but we'll be looking at that. A lot of times whenever you think of Galatians chapter 5, you think of the fruits of the Spirit. If you've grown up in church, you've heard that term, fruits of the Spirit and fruits of the flesh. But basically, Galatians chapter 5, the Apostle Paul is writing that letter to the church at Galatia, and he's saying these are some attributes, some behaviors that Christians should have. And it's a good church. And the letter, it's a very strong letter that we can use foundationally for our beliefs and for our behavior. But Galatians chapter 5, really dealing with people, and right now, with all the changes, you guys know that I'm in healthcare and imaging, to be specific, so CTs and MRIs and X-rays, nuclear medicine, ultrasound, those sort of things. And so basically, we take pictures all day. People come to see us, we take an image of an inside part, and then we send that image to their doctor, and we have radiologists that interpret it and say, okay, this is what we think this is. But if for anybody that's been to a doctor's office recently, you know you have to wear a mask. It's required. And also, if you have had any symptoms or anything like that that might be similar to what we're all dealing with right now, then we have to treat you in a special way. And that special way means if we suspect that you might be sick with COVID-19, that we have you go to your car, quarantine in your car, and then we bring you in a side door and we take care of you and make sure that you have minimal exposure to the inside of the building where we are at, and that the scan is very quick. So let's say you come in for a chest x-ray, we have you quarantine, bring you in the side door, we do an electronic check-in so you don't have to do a lot of paperwork or things like that, and then get you back out to the car, and it's about a 10-minute process. Patients have been we've had some good feedback from people because they're nervous, they're scared, and then us taking the scan, that's another step for them to do as far as getting a chest x-ray or even a CT. And so it's been good for us to bring people in and out and treat them with respect that way. Healthcare looks at patient satisfaction. That's a big deal, and we can get measured by that. And so right now, our patient satisfaction scores have actually been very high because we've been trying to give that personal care with patients and take care of them. It's one of those things where you think about it, and I've had several people say, well, why can't we do this every day? Or why can't we make this a part of our practice moving forward as far as how we take care of folks personally and make sure they're taken care of? And so we've been learning from this. Same thing for us as Christians. We've been quarantining. We have the option of actually today going to Faith Baptist Church and socially distancing and being in an outdoor worship service. And so that's something to look forward to. A lot of churches have been doing this already as far as drive-in church and being, again, social distancing, being careful not to be around each other in close proximity. But today, and prior to this, we've been worshiping through YouTube, just like today with Sunday school lessons. And so I've been hearing back from a lot of you guys, and also I know Mickey, our pastor, has been as well, so it's been very encouraging. But what do we do, and how do we deal with people right now? We have church members that are furloughed. I know we have also folks that have been directly impacted by COVID-19. So how do we reach out to those folks, and how do we help them? So look at Galatians chapter 5, verses 13 to 15. For you were called to be free, brothers and sisters, Only do not use this freedom as an opportunity for the flesh, but serve one another through love. For the whole law is fulfilled in one statement: love your neighbor as yourself. But if you do bite and devour one another, watch out, for you will be consumed by one another. And Paul's saying, we do not live, in this case, under the Mosaic law. So you can, back then the Sabbath was a Saturday, so if you need to help somebody on a Saturday do something, you can get that ox out of that ditch where the ox or donkey may be stuck. You can help out with other areas, but just be careful. Don't let that be something where you get to slack in your faith. I know I've heard Christians talk about, well, I can go to a bar and witness to people, or I can do this and that. Well, no, I mean, just be careful how you exercise your freedom as a Christian to be a testimony to others, so that it does not become a bad testimony on yourself. That's where you have to worry about that. We had this lady at our church whenever I was growing up. Her name was Mrs. Jackson, and she was always older and had white hair, and she was very stately. And the kids around church, whenever I was a teenager, it became kind of the joke. In fact, our youth pastor started it, and it was actually something that stuck. He said, "Would you want Mrs. Jackson to see you doing that?" And it was kind of like, that's kind of the litmus test as far as behavior. Mrs. Jackson showing up, would she approve of that? So the Mrs. Jackson test. And what connection do we have in freedom with Christ as far as freedom of serving? We've been looking the past few weeks as far as Easter and the freedom that we have from sin and past sin and a lifestyle, and how do we use that to serve in a free way but not abuse that freedom. So let's continue to look in Galatians chapter 5, verses 1 through 5. Brothers and sisters, if someone is overtaken in a wrongdoing, and you who are spiritual, restore such a person, do it in a gentle spirit. Watch out for yourselves, so that you will not be tempted. Carry one another's burden. In this way, you will fulfill the law of Christ. For if anyone considers himself to be something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. Let each person examine his own work, and then he can take pride in himself alone and not compare himself to someone else, for each person will have to carry his own load. One of the worst things that can happen to us in life is comparing ourselves to other people. Social media can be the worst. You check out somebody's social media site and they've had a perfect vacation. Well, not right now, but in the past they've had a perfect vacation, or they may have purchased a new vehicle, or their kids have gotten perfect grades, and you're thinking, oh gosh, okay. Or whatever. We compare ourselves. And it could be also if we see somebody else and we drive through a different part of town that may look different than where we live, and we might say, ooh, that looks bad. I'm so glad I don't live there. You know, the religious leaders of the time did that, where they would look down on people, and then they would kind of think, oh, I'm such a good religious leader, I'm glad I don't look like that sinner. And God will humble you pretty quickly. Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, was on a late-night show this week, Jimmy Fallon, and he has a great reputation as being a humble fella. I mean, he's a big guy, massive, and just a cool fella, and he makes fun of himself, and that's kind of humbling, and I like to see that whenever somebody can definitely laugh at themselves. You have to be able to laugh at yourself. So you as a Christian, how do you laugh at yourself in a way to where you don't get carried away? Your position in life, you may have a certain income level that may be decent. How does that affect you and your giving to others and how you handle people? Also, blind spots. It mentions in here, if you see somebody that's caught up in sin, reach out to them. Do it in a loving way. Don't immediately say, you're a sinner. You know, God's going to judge you right now, and get a cane and start hitting them with the cane. That's a true story from an old church in Randolph County back in the 1800s. There was an elderly gentleman that had a cane that would beat the cane on the floor and make a scene if somebody was walked past him that had been in a sinful activity that he thought was sinful. So you don't want to call people out like that in public. You want to go to them individually and just talk to them, see what's going on, check on them. sometimes whenever somebody's caught up in a situation, it's because they have a real need in their life. And so they need somebody to reach out to them and say, hey, just wanted to check on you, and that person will definitely be blessed that you did. I travel Highway 311. It's called, I guess, Highway 74 now. But, as it goes under Eastchester, and you always have that right lane that merges in. And there's always people merging in right there as I'm heading down, heading back towards home away from Winston. It never fails. There's always just a multitude of cars. And Highway 311 goes from roughly 2-lane once you go under Eastchester to 3-lane. You have that third lane, and a lot of times I like to merge over in that right-hand lane. I can go down, hit Business 85, and then, do battle there. It gets entertaining on Business 85 as well. One day I was driving, and I was in my little red Nissan truck, and I'm usually very careful when I merge lanes. I really try to look at mirrors and also glance back over my shoulder. I don't just trust one site. I look at multiple sites. So coming down 311, that right lane opens up. There's nobody merging in off of Eastchester. I'm amazed. There's no cars for once. And so, I kind of get overly confident. I'm like, gosh, I don't see anybody on the ramp, and I'll just go and go over in that right-hand lane. And all of a sudden, in my rearview mirror, I see this little Honda Accord that had been beside me in a blind spot duck around me, and it was a rather angry young woman, and she went past me on the left. And I felt stupid. I thought, oh, great. There I was, thinking nobody was merging in, and sure enough, here came a road car and was in my blind spot, and I almost merged over on top of the car there with my little truck. And for us as Christians, there are blind spots in our lives, and be welcome to another Christian whenever they do point those out to you, whenever that Christian does it in a loving manner. I've had that in my past as well, whenever I've had another Christian approach me and say, hey, what's going on? Or let's talk about this. And when I knew this other Christian was doing it in a way of Christian love, at first you get defensive, but then whenever you can talk to the person, it's very beneficial. And for me, I know, gosh, 10, 15 years later, I can think of specifically, I can look back at it, and I'm blessed, and that person's a dear close friend to me to this day. And I think about that, and I mention that to them. Every once in a while, I randomly thank them. Thank you for confronting me about that issue. And they're like, oh, yeah, okay. So Galatians chapter 6, verses 1 through 5 is what we just looked at. So I hope I didn't say Galatians chapter 5. We transitioned into Galatians chapter 6. And, what does carrying somebody else's burden look like, especially right now? How do we do that? In Galatians chapter 6, verses 10, in Galatians chapter 6, verse 7, there's a very ominous verse that talks about what you reap, you sow. And a lot of times when we look at that, we think negatively. We think, ooh, what they sow, they're going to reap. I think I got that backwards the first time. And we say that about folks. Well, they're sowing that. They're going to reap that. Look out. But what about in a positive way, what we sow in a good way, we might reap? I know that person that confronted me in Christian love, each time I mentioned that to them about that, thank you for confronting me in that Christian love, that was something they did in Christ, and they sowed that relationship. I'm using gardening terms, so not sowing like needles and things like that. If you're at home thinking, I don't know how to sow, what's he talking about? Well, sowing seeds is a gardening term. You put the seed in the ground, you water it, and the plant grows, and all of a sudden you have tomatoes. So how do you sow? In this situation, this person prayed about it, talked to me about it, so they were sowing seeds in a relationship with me, and then they reaped the benefit of knowing they did something for Christ, and like I said, I still randomly remind them to this day, hey, thank you. And so they're still reaping the benefits of knowing they served Christ in that moment whenever they confronted me in Christian love. So again, how do we do this? How do we bear somebody's burden? Maybe somebody's not messing up and we don't have to confront them. Maybe somebody has a burden they're bearing right now because they've been furloughed. I know somebody right now specifically I can think of, they've been furloughed from their job through at least the end of June. And they don't know that their job's going to start back in June. It's retail, it's clothing right now. Not a lot of people are buying clothes. They can't go into stores. So what do? Salons. You guys know my mom has a salon, and so many people that have salons, they don't have vacation days. They don't have vacation. The only vacation they take is whenever they can take off time to be away and know they're not going to be making money, and they can block enough time in their schedule to do that and save up money. So that's, if you guys know somebody that is a barber or is a stylist, that's, they survive on that income, and right now they don't have that. I know our church has a benevolence fund, so one way you can do this is by reaching out to our church, Faith Baptist Church in Trinity, North Carolina, and giving to the benevolence fund. It's that fund is set up to help people in need, and it is vetted by our church leadership, and they look at situations and they pray about them, and then they use those monies to help out people. So please give to that, the benevolence fund that we have at church. And that really wraps up our lesson. It's 16 minutes, and that's how I've been keeping the lessons. Galatians chapter 5, Galatians chapter 6. Think about how you can serve others, what you can do right now, and be a blessing to others right now. Again, thank you. Happy 2 months after St. Patrick's Day, May 17th. Hope you have a great Sunday. We'll see you next week. Bye.